You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, the brains of our operation, Nick Kosko, Kyle Reese. Welcome, guys.
Well, hey, I don't know about the brains of the operation here. We have the real operator with us. This might be the first time the three of us have done this. Kyle, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Kyle,
I think you're right, Nick. I think this is the first time that we've done this, and maybe the last. No, just kidding.
Probably a good idea.
No, just kidding. All right, folks. Well, we're here and we're having this episode for a big announcement. Here's the announcement. Go ahead, Nick.
well, if you're watching this, you'll see the backdrop Jim has. It says Dominium Wealth, and we're rebranding. And I thought about this, Jim, when you all messaged me about this. You brought back a great memory of David Letterman. Back like 30 years ago in college, for some reason, people thought I looked like David Letterman. And so these top 10s would go around all the time. And so I asked ChatGPT to come up with David Letterman type top 10 reasons why we would switch. And I tell you what, I had it do it like 3 or 4 times and they were all terrible.
They were.
Maybe that's, just a function of how David's top 10s have become, is just terrible. But so we don't have that for you, audience. So we're going to have to tell you maybe the truth.
We're just going to here's the thing that we're going to go with is when you think of wealth and you think of Dominium and you think of what we're teaching, what we're passionate about, what we're trying to create value with, serve others. When you think of all of that, this name goes together perfectly. And so probably Kyle, tell me what Dominium means, because some people out there in that audience, they don't know what that word means, Dominium.
The two elements of it that are most important are freedom and control.
Freedom and control. And, audience, it's really hard when you sit down with somebody. I mean, I've done this recently, talk to somebody just like in a casual social situation about what's wrong with money. I did it yesterday. I got this physical therapist that uses this robot thing, and she was really cool. And she, is into alternative health and everything. And I said, well, everything that you've been told about money is a lie. And she goes, what do you mean by that? And so she said, well, I have a 401k and I have this and I have that. And I was like, everything you've been told is a lie. You're doing all the things that common people do, not uncommon. And we hope that everybody listening to this show wants to break out of the herd, which is where the common people live, and they want to be uncommon. And so Dominium, having control over your wealth, having freedom to build your wealth as big as you want to build it, those things are biblical. It's right in the Bible about abundance. And so we wanted to change our name from CreateTailwind, which is great, how to create a financial tailwind. But Dominium Wealth goes deeper than that. And it's about exactly what Kyle said. That's what we teach. So that's one of the reasons we changed our name. And I really feel passionate about changing the name and the message going forward and explaining to people what Dominium Wealth means more than CreateTailwind. Nick, tell me maybe sometime in the past where you've explained CreateTailwind, and tell me how you're going to explain Dominium Wealth in the future.
Well, one of the bigger problems with CreateTailwind was nobody knew how to spell it right. Like Jim in a moment of brilliance 15 plus years ago said, well, I'll just spell this 2-word word with what as one word. So that's always been entertainment. But I actually had a funny experience. My kids have all gone to a school where they learn Latin. And my 3rd grader, he was sitting in the kitchen and my wife and I were discussing this Dominium switch. And he goes, I know what that word means. And I was like, really? And he goes, power. And I was like, and then he asked about the neuter or whatever. And he's like, yeah, like control, something like that. I was just like blown away. And then I asked my 16-year-old about it, who hasn't done a Latin class in 2.5 years. And he knew what it was. And I thought that was pretty cool that, there's some intuitiveness about this as well. And, we've always talked about, hey, the CreateTailwind is not original. Nelson talks about that in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. That's the root of it. People would want to say, you guys are so smart. Like, oh, you flew airplanes for a living. That's like, no, the guy who wrote the book, he flew airplanes too. But ultimately, I think 2020, the events of 2020, and you told me this leading up to 2020, hey, when the markets go goofy, our business explodes. And that's what happened in 2020, because people, a whole gargantuan flock of people who were suspicious that there's a problem, um, got it thrown in their face that there's a problem, right? Became a lot easier to see. So the narrative of control became a much easier conversation than I felt like it was in the 5-6 years I did this before 2020. And so that's just been a common theme I find. And Kyle and I, when we do calls together, you and I, when we do calls together, we're always asking, how much of your money do they want? How long do they want it? How much do they want to give back to you? Well, the follow-up question is, who's they, right? And it's the banks, Wall Street, and government. And they just want control of your money. That's the narrative. Like, if you want to solve that problem, the nuts and bolts of it are pretty simple. We can prove it with math, but all those little details don't really matter if you can just face in the mirror solving the problem of who's in control. And it's pretty simple in the grand scheme of things. So it's a natural fit. It's not something a normal word you would use. Kind of going back to some roots of our language. Really, I was hoping Moose study for his Latin final last night, and I was actually thinking about this a little bit, like just the stuff they're rattling off and all those little roots. There was aqua and architecture and all these words. I'm like, man, that is all rooted in Latin. Well, there's something there, dominate, like that's to own and control something. Well, guess where that's rooted out of? Just little things like that have struck me the more that we've had this conversation, and this was not a overnight decision we made. So how about that for you, Kyle?
Well, I think one of the words I left out at the beginning was ownership, right? That's a huge element of all of this. There's the ownership, the control, and the freedom. And I think of Dominium. I go back to Genesis 1 when he says, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over all living things. And we were called to take ownership. We were called to be a force in this world. And that's not what Wall Street asks us to do. They ask us to set aside our calling and give our resources to them so that they can control them and so that we can feel safe, right? It's all packaged in this caring message that it's for us. But we were called to more than that. And this switch of Dominium Wealth, like, I think it just embodies that. CreateTailwind, yes, we're taking financial headwinds and turning them into tailwinds. Great. But when we look at wealth, I think, Jim, you've said it over and over and over. Nelson was one of the wealthiest men you ever met, not because of the dollar amount, but because of his whole life. And Dominium Wealth is not just about getting an IBC policy. It's not just about creating cash flow. It's the whole life. We are called to live powerful, whole lives. And that's where we're switching.
I love it. The thing is that when I think about freedom and I think about wealth, we like to say things, we like to repeat things. People need to be reminded, audience, as much as you need to be educated. So sometimes we're just a reminder of what you already know on some of these topics. But money gives you choices, choices gives you freedom. Now, that word freedom, everybody uses it way, way, way too much. But yesterday, Kyle and I had a brief conversation, and we were talking about freedom, and we were talking about family. We were talking about just the ability to spend time with your family. Now, think about so many people, and I think about somebody that I've met recently that I'm very close to. We'll be closer to her July 5th this year. But audience, I'll let you in on that little secret later. But, she's got 4 kids as a single mom. She doesn't have any freedom, right? It's work all day, take care of the kids all day, go to sleep, pass out, do it again, do it again. And that's what the society says is okay, right? And While you're doing that, let the government have some of your money, the bank have all of your money, and then Wall Street will manage it for you for the rest of your life and only charge you a little fee. That's what you're told to do. And you do it because you're exhausted, because your stress in your life has exceeded your capacity. That's not freedom. That's anxiety, that's stress, that's overload, that's overwhelm. And that's what people feel like when it comes to wealth. So when we really want to teach you to have dominium over your wealth so that you direct it, you control it, you grow it, you benefit from it. And freedom is scary if you don't know what you're doing, right? But that's why we're here. And that's why we're telling you in our name, we're here to help you take dominium of your wealth. Anything to add to that, Kyle?
You said freedom is scary, and it just sent me back to a book that I really liked. It's kind of shaped some of the ways that I've thought, which is extreme ownership. And it's scary to take ownership for things that we don't fully understand. And we're moving into this space where AI is way more prevalent, where like there's just a change in our society, and it's really nice to have a big part of our ecosystem, our personal ecosystem, be steady, right? And not everybody's telling us to do that. I mean, most of us are hearing messages of change, 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 and put your money in these different spots and do this different thing because you were never told the right thing. And that's where I think like that ownership needs to be rooted in simple stuff. And Dominion Wealth, the freedom, it's difficult to go down the path of freedom if there's a lot of complexity, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's a lot easier to take ownership of something when we understand how simple it is. And I think that's one of the things that we love to do. And I've seen time after time after time clients come to the table and say, they're confused, basically. There's too much going on. There's too much complexity. Money is pretty simple. And when you understand how simple it is and then how to make it work for you, it's a lot easier to take ownership for it and to then live free.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Nick, anything to add?
No, we always say it takes a little courage, a little confidence, a little coaching, and the enemy wants to isolate us and make you feel alone, and then he can pick you off, right? And
Yeah.
that's how we really get made to feel in the traditional models, right?
Yeah.
And even those partnerships are illusions, right? They're not for your benefit, they're for someone else's benefit. So, what we encourage people is to just understand and see and be curious that there is a solution and that you're not alone. And we're walking alongside you. And it's not just us, it's a whole host of people that will come alongside to help you have clarity on really the simplicity of having control. And experiencing a different life.
I love it. Let's dive in a little bit into what people get, what they can expect from Dominium Wealth. And it's not unlike what you could expect from CreateTailwind, but I want you to think about it because we think about it a little bit differently. When you think about turning a headwind into a tailwind, you can visualize that and it makes sense. And you go, okay, tell me how to do that. Okay, great. Yes, I want that. But it's kind of the result, not the process, right? It's saying this is what you're going to get at the end. But then sometimes people think, well, how am I going to get that? Right. So Dominium Wealth, we're really focusing on foundation, infrastructure, building, blueprints. And when you think about all you really want, whether you're going to build a house. I was talking to a contractor yesterday, just talking about a lot, what's the process, and I'm not talking about the government. You got to file for a permit and all that. Okay. The government's why it takes so long to build a house. But what I'm talking about is, okay, do you have a blueprint? Do you have a design? And then it's really kind of like putting together a baby bed back in the day, and you're like, oh my gosh, this looks like there's no way I could do this, right? And you grab the really bad instructions and you go, step A, put this bolt in this hole tight, right? And then you go step B and step C. And so just like something as simple as that, maybe not as simple, simple does not mean easy, by the way, right, audience, is we're going to take you through a process, and it's all about building, and we're not just going to manage your wealth. We're not going to do that. We're going to help you learn mastery to where you dictate the trajectory of of your wealth. And it's almost like building a house or a structure, not an institution, but like a structure. And first you got to start with foundation. So foundation has to be truth, right? I mean, you can't say, you know what? Yeah, I know that's a little swampy over there, but I think it's fine to start building our house right there, right? No, you need a solid foundation. So the foundation has to be the truth. And the truth about money is that everything that you've been told is a lie. And that if you keep doing it the way that you're doing it, you're building your house or trying to build a house on mud and water. And nobody would ever build a house on that, right? And in Florida, when you buy land, it's like, what percentage is uplands, dry, and what percentage is wetlands? Because you better fill that in with some really good fill dirt if you're going to build a house, because you're not going to build on that. Everybody knows that. And so, but we don't know that with our money. And as you go through the process of building your fortress for your money, now fortresses aren't just holding on to it like a bank tells you it's so safe. I'm holding on to your money for you, right? By the way, what we're going to do is we're going to build it, take ownership of it. It's going to create freedom. We're going to make that ownership in our attitude at the very beginning that we're the builder. We're not just the people that are moving into the house. It's that house that, we're going to build it as the builder for the person living in the house. Maybe touch on that, Dick.
Well, this may not be where you were thinking about, where my brain goes is without a vision, man will perish.
I love it.
All right. So a tool we use is not original to us. Give a hat tip to Dan Sullivan, but it's the R factor question.
Yeah.
If we're sitting here 3 years from today, looking back at today, what are all the things that need to happen, both personally and professionally, for you to call it a success? And I think that's the quote, but maybe I'm a little off, but
with your progress, but that's pretty close.
yeah, but happy with your progress. So it's, hey, what do I want? And I forget the time constraint. The time constraint doesn't matter. Okay. It's, what is it that I want? Then you write it down. And if anybody wants this, just reach out to us and we'll send you the PDF of this, and we'll have new branding on it, of the CreateTailwind branding. But you just write it out, and you write out I am statements, right? I have this, I am doing this type of statements. And you start living in that vision, and forget how much it costs. Forget any constraints on it. If there was no constraints, this is what you would do. And you would experience the smells, the sights, the sounds, all of that of your daily life. And then we're going to take stock of where we are, because we got to know where we are on the map. And if you're riddled with debt, then we're going to start with that. If we're flush in cash, we're going to start with that. And we're going to just come to the next natural right step for you in your process. This is what we love doing. It's called infinite banking. And that word infinite just seems so prevalent in everything. Because if we've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of clients together, Jim, over the last 12, 13 years, and you got a lot more reps before I came along, the stories, not one is the same. Detail, not one of them is the same. And I love even the differences we bring to the table with our stories and our experiences, right? So we're going to help you create your experience. Hey, where are we? Hey, here's the thing. Sometimes people are shameful about these things, right? About taking stock of where they are. But I had someone ask me this question. They said, anything you've ever experienced negative in your life, if you were writing that down, would you have to make up any words about that? And I said, no, those were all normal English words. And they said, yeah, then someone else has already done it. And it's okay. They've already made that mistake. So what? We just have to recognize it so that we can move forward. So give yourself the grace, right? And then we're going to take the next natural step. And we're just going to, it's not a get rich quick thing. We're not going to be able to get to 3 years from now tomorrow. So we're going to be patient. We're going to give ourselves grace and patience and be along the ride with you. But we're going to start with the vision, followed by where the heck are we?
Kyle, how about you?
I think the building on stone versus building on sand metaphor in Matthew 7 is really applicable to what you were talking about, Jim. And there's the mindset component of that, Nick. Thanks for diving into that. But then there's also the living out of it. Like, what does, when people are coming to the table looking for infinite banking policies, sometimes they'll say, hey, this is an investment, right? Like, I just want to diversify, whatever. I've always thought about infinite banking. Like, if you were going to be building your dream life, I think about that as a mansion, right? If I'm going to build a mansion, there's going to be a lot of beauty that you're going to see from the outside. There's walls with different architecture. Depending on where you're standing, it's all going to look different. What is that mansion built on? That needs to be built on a very, very solid foundation. Infinite banking, the policies, all that stuff is just the foundation, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get lost is back to what you were saying, Jim, is people might come to the table expecting us to manage their wealth. No, we're trying to help you establish a foundation both in your mindset and in your financial life so that you can have a very secure place to launch off and go do what you've been called to do.
You know, when you think about Mark 11:24, Nick, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours. Now, so what you're saying with the R factor question is you have to act like you've already said, I am this, right? So when you pray for something and you believe that you've already received it and it'll be yours. That middle part, people forget. They have doubt, right? So it's important. And then Hebrews 11:1, it says, is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Okay. So that just means that even if you don't understand it in the beginning, it's what are you trying to do? Okay. I don't really like that word hope, but I do in the Bible, just to be clear. But in humans, hope is normally a sales pitch. You know what I mean? But you got to pray like it's already moving. You have to visualize your life like it's already there, not from desperation, but from faith that you have a good foundation and that your faith is bigger than your fear. And so foundation determines everything, like Kyle just said. The Bible says a wise man builds on a rock, right? Not sand. Storms come to both men, but only one house stands. So you could do it the common way. And when storms come, people go, man, I lost all my money. And then I just, Wall Street's down today. So the storm comes every day. It's up or it's down. Oh, it's sunny today. Oh, it's cloudy tomorrow. It's a hailstorm. So build your life on truth, faith, and principles from the Bible, because everything that you've read in personal development has its roots in the Bible. I mean, everything. What Nick just said about the R factor question, it's right there in Mark 11:24. Dan Sullivan didn't invent it. He just explained it in a different way, right? God invented that. And so also we believe that we're here to serve you and to help you. We're to help you take the dominium of your wealth and grow it and grow it. Final thoughts, Nick.
It's just an invitation. It's an invitation to experience life a little differently, maybe a lot differently than what you've experienced it now, and be curious about it, not be fearful of it. And there's nothing lost by walking down the path a little bit and just being curious like a little kid. How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, freedom is scary, ownership is scary, and there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of excitement out there in the space about what can be done. My encouragement would be surround yourself with people who are doing it, not just this part of it, but like the whole picture of ownership and taking dominium in their life. Surround yourself with them. And that's our goal. Like you asked, what is the client's experience? What should people expect from Dominium Wealth? It's that when you talk to any of us, we're living this out, and it's from that position that we speak and that we guide, because we're walking the walk. We're not just here telling fun stuff about different things.
I love that too. And, things are scary until they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that, if think about everything in your life that you were ever afraid to do, what's the one thing that eliminates that fear? And that's action. So the action that I have for you audience that we're going to wrap up and leave you with today is go to our Breakaway Wealth community, take a course, check out some stuff, book a call with one or all or whoever you want. Okay. And see if we can help you, because that's our mission. That's what we believe we're here for. And our Dominium is taking control of how we help people, not moving from our values and faith to bring you a message that it might be a little scary, but we're here to hold your hand on that roller coaster. And it's not going to be an up and down Wall Street roller coaster. It's just going to be straight up, and it's going to be fast. Okay. It's faster than you think. So audience, thank you so much for listening today. We're going to wrap this up like we always do with the truth. And it's the incredible words of Earl Nightingale. And he didn't invent this either, but the strangest secret, which is whatever you think about, you'll become.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to hear what was shared on today's podcast. If you are looking to discover new wealth building strategies, join our free online community and get access to free courses and in-depth training videos designed to help you build wealth and break away from the herd. Click the link in the show notes to access the community today. Thanks again for listening.